A sunny day. The late February sun was a benevolent golden orb, chasing away the last vestiges of winter chill as Dean cruised down the highway. The top of his Cadillac was down, a rare indulgence, the wind ruffling his silver hair. He hummed along to a familiar jazz standard playing softly on the car radio, a perfect accompaniment to the afternoon's lazy warmth. It was a day for easy smiles and quiet contentment, the kind he hadn't enjoyed in what felt like a lifetime. He gripped the smooth, cool leather of the steering wheel, a sense of peace settling over him. The music faltered, replaced by the urgent, clipped tones of a news bulletin. "We interrupt this program for breaking news," a male voice announced. Tight, with barely contained excitement, Dean frowned, turning up the volume slightly. Reports are flooding in from San Bernardino County. Multiple sources are confirming the tragic death of legendary entertainer Dean Martin. The world tilted. In flooding. 45/World 45. The world tilted. The sun seemed to mock him. Suddenly, too bright, too warm. The hum died in his throat. He felt a sudden, profound chill snake down his spine. His name, the announcer's voice continued, a chilling drone, detailing a plane crash in the San Bernardino Mountains. Disbelief warred with a cold, creeping certainty. It had to be a mistake. Cruel, unthinkable joke. Yet the announcer's conviction, the sheer weight of the words, pressed down on him, suffocating. He kept driving, knuckles white on the wheel. The bright, sunny day, now a surreal, terrifying backdrop to an announcement that spoke of his own demise. The grip of news. Dean's knuckles were stark white against the worn leather of the steering wheel, his grip of ice. The announcer's voice, a steady baritone, continued its relentless broadcast, detailing the recovery efforts, the initial reports from the crash site in the San Bernardino Mountains. Each new fragment of information, each grim confirmation of a downed aircraft, twisted a tighter knot in Dean's gut. Confusion warred with a cold, growing dread. A crash? In the mountains? The mental image of twisted metal, of smoke against a blue sky, flashed through his mind, unbidden. The announcer then mentioned the name again, with a gravitas that sent a shiver down Dean's spine. Sources are confirming the identity of the deceased, the legendary entertainer, Dean Martin. A strangled sound escaped Dean's lips, half gasp, half denial. Legendary entertainer? The news was spreading. He could feel it, a ripple turning into a tsunami. He envisioned the frantic phone calls, the flashing headlines, all proclaiming his death. The irony was a bitter taste in his mouth, a macabre joke at his expense. But the pit in his stomach wasn't about the world thinking he was dead. It was about the chilling specificity of the crash. The San Bernardino Mountains, a place too close to home. The announcer continued, oblivious to the man gripping his steering wheel. Alive and very much not legendary. Just a father, with a son, who loved to fly. A world mistaken. Breaking news from the AP wire. We're getting confirmed reports that Dean Martin has died in a tragic plane crash in the San Bernardino Mountains. Mr. Port, and the first team described Racing. Mr. Port. Harrison's voice, usually a smooth baritone, cracked slightly with the gravity of the announcement. On the television screens lining the control room, chirons flashed. Legendary crooner, Dean Martin dead, at Setenta. A grainy photo of the Rat Pack icon filled every major network's broadcast. Brenda, her headset askew, cuggled flashing buttons, her fingers flying across the console. "Another call, Mr. Harrison. CNN wants an exclusive on his last interview," she yelled, her voice a pitch higher than usual. Her face was flushed, a mix of adrenaline and burgeoning panic. She scribbled notes furiously on a pad, passing them through the glass to Mr. Harrison, whose brow was furrowed in concentration. "This is a monumental loss for the entertainment world," Mr. Harrison continued. his voice regaining its professional cadence. He cleared his throat, unaware that the world, fueled by his words and countless others. Brenda, meanwhile, answered another line. "Yes, ma'am, I understand. No, we don't have details on the funeral arrangements yet." A cold dread began to prickle at her, an insistent whisper that something felt profoundly wrong. The sheer volume of calls, the unshakable certainty in everyone's voices. It was overwhelming. She glanced at Mr. Harrison. "Considia, Anja," Mr. Harrison, who was already queuing up a tribute song, completely oblivious to the impending storm. Destination, radio station, the familiar street names dissolved into streaks of colour at the periphery of Dean's vision. His knuckles stark white against the steering wheel. He hadn't consciously plotted a course, yet the car, an extension of his raw fury, swerved violently left, its tyres shrieking in protest. His destination was undeniable. KNX, the very station that had so casually broadcast his demise. How could they? How dared they distill a man's entire being into a garbled name, a factual error? His breath caught, a phantom H in his chest entirely unrelated to physical harm. He had to rectify this, not only for himself, but for the unvarnished truth, within the radio station's sterile embrace. A frantic energy throbbed, phones jangled without cease, producers barked commands, and the intern, eyes wide with panic, fumbled a fresh stack of wire reports. The lead announcer, still radiating the thrill of his recent scoop, leaned into the microphone, utterly oblivious to the tempest brewing beyond the soundproofed studio. The digital clock above him relentlessly counted down the seconds, each tick drawing Dean nearer to the glass doors of the lobby. A security guard, mid-jawn, remained oblivious as the silver Cadillac glided to the curb, its engine purring with a low, predatory growl. Dean's jaw was a rigid line, his gaze locked on the entrance. He wasn't merely walking in, he was meticulously rewriting an obituary. The uninvited guest. The heavy studio door groaned as Dean pushed it open. The sudden draft ruffling the announcer's perfectly coiffed hair. Mr. Harrison, mid-sentence about the tragic loss of the legendary crooner, froze, his eyes, wide with disbelief and a dawning horror, fixated on the man standing in the doorway. The microphone, still hot and live, captured the sharp intake of his breath, a sound amplified to a shocking degree. Dean Martin, a titan of entertainment, gone too soon. Harrison stammered, his voice trailing off as he registered the impossible apparition before him. A high-pitched, guttural scream tore from his throat, echoing through the soundproofed room like a banshee's wail. Then, an immediate, absolute silence descended. The broadcast, the bustling newsroom beyond the glass, even the hum of the studio equipment seemed to vanish. Only the faint, almost imperceptible buzz of the live microphone remained, a stark reminder of the millions listening to the void. Dean, his face a mask of weary resolve, stepped further into the room. His gaze was steady, unblinking, fixed on the man who had just announced his death to the world. The air crackled with a tension so thick it felt physical, pressing down on everyone present, a shared, unspoken dread. The truth, sharp. The air thinned with Dean's arrival, a palpable vacuum that stole Brenda's breath and blurred her peripheral vision. Harrison, moments ago a PR of righteous fury, now sagged, a lone bead of perspiration tracing a path down his temple. Dean's voice, utterly devoid of histrionics, sliced through the studio's paralyzed hush. "I'm not dead. My son is." Brenda's chest constricted. Her earlier triumph, the intoxicating rush of a career-making scoop, congealed into a sickening dread. The frantic energy that had propelled them through the morning dissipated, yielding to an unsettling lucidity. She glanced at Mr. Harrison, whose coiffed hair seemed to droop, his face a canvas of dawning horror. The polished professionalism he so meticulously cultivated, fractured, revealing a man terrified by the precipice on which his career now teetered. His stammered apology dissolved into an inarticulate gasp. The studio, previously a whirlwind of activity, became a mausoleum. Technicians froze mid-task, their eyes wide with dawning comprehension. The magnitude of the error, once a sensational headline, now metastasized into a grotesque public tragedy. The wrong man, the wrong death, the wrong grief. It hung heavy, an oppressive shroud. Dean's unblinking gaze, stripped of all emotion, swept across them. "You want a story?" His voice, still unnervingly calm, dropped to a whisper that nonetheless reverberated with devastating power. "My son, Captain Dean Paul Martin, died today. Not me. Him. Get it right. Get it right." The control room's fluorescent lights hummed, casting a pallor on Mr. Harrison's already ashen face. He stared at Dean, then at the sputtering microphone, a silent scream trapped in his throat. Brenda, her headset still askew, fumbled with a loose cable, her bright eyes wide with dawning comprehension. The enormity of the station's blunder settled in the air, thick and suffocating. Dean, however, remained unnervingly still. He moved closer to the console, his voice a low, gravelly current that cut through the lingering static. "You want a story?" he asked. Not a question, but a chilling pronouncement. His gaze, devoid of tears but heavy with an unspeakable sorrow, locked onto Mr. Harrison. "My son, Captain Dean Paul Martin, died today. Not me. Him. Get it right. Mr." Harrison's impeccably styled hair seemed to wilt. His carefully constructed professional facade crumbled, revealing a man terrified not just of professional ruin, but of the raw, public grief he had so carelessly amplified. Brenda's hand flew to her mouth, a silent gasp escaping. The distinction, once blurred by haste and assumption, now stood in stark, devastating clarity. The world had announced the wrong death, and Dean Martin, the legend, was here to set the record straight, his heart breaking with every syllable. An empty voice. The playback began. A low hum, then static, before Dean's voice filled the small control room. It was flat, toneless, devoid of any human resonance. "You want a story? My son, Captain Dean Paul Martin, died today. Not me. Him. Get it right." Each word was a chipped fragment of ice, delivered without inflection, without a tremor. The audio engineer, a young woman named Sarah, flinched, pulling back from the console as if burned. The station manager, a man whose usual bluster had evaporated, stared at the speakers, his face pale and drawn. Dean, watching their reactions from behind the soundproof glass, felt a perverse satisfaction. He remembered the shock of that voice leaving his own throat, a stranger's voice, hollowed out by a grief so profound it had cauterized all feeling. He'd wished then, and still wished now, that the initial report had been true. For Dean Paul's sake, for the relief of never having to endure this agonizing aftermath. He was alive, yes, but a vital part of him had been ripped away, leaving only this empty echo. Sarah quietly pressed stop. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken apologies, with the crushing weight of their collective error. The air in the studio, usually buzzing with frantic energy, felt heavy, still, and cold. They had chased a scoop and instead unearthed a tragedy, broadcast it live, and now they were left to process the chilling evidence of their mistake. The weight of grief. The double doors of KQRT swung open, unleashing Dean into a blinding flash of cameras and a roar of questions. Microphones thrust forward like a metallic hydra, each head spitting demands for a statement. He pushed through the throng, the chaos a dull hum compared to the ringing silence inside him. His son was gone. That truth, stark and unyielding, was now irrevocably entangled with this grotesque performance. The world knew, but their understanding felt shallow, a cruel parody of his own profound agony. Every headline would now carry the weight of his son's death, but also the bizarre, humiliating footnote of his own misreported demise. Inside the station, the aftermath was a different kind of pandemonium. Mr. Harrison, usually unflappable, was a crumpled figure, his tie askew, his face a roadmap of regret. This is catastrophic," he muttered, running a shaky hand through his thinning hair. "My career, Brenda. It's over." Brenda, her earlier enthusiasm replaced by a ghastly pallor, stared at the silent broadcast console. The phone lines were jammed, a frantic, accusing symphony. "But it wasn't intentional," she whispered, her voice barely audible. We didn't check." The human cost, beyond the ruined careers, settled heavily in the air. Dean's hollow eyes, the quiet despair in his voice, it was a vision she knew would haunt her. The broadcast, meant to inform, had instead inflicted a new wound, broadcasting grief as a spectacle.